It is Shavuot Eve, and the tradition is to read from the Ten Commandments. Please join me first in the blessing before the reading of the Torah. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim venatan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
When God first spoke the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai, they were not called the Ten Commandments. They were simply called the 10 words. The phrase 10 Commandments actually never appears where they are enumerated here in Exodus chapter 20, or anywhere else in the Torah for that matter. Later in the book of Exodus, when we read the story receiving the Torah at Mount Sinai, which we celebrate this evening on our festival of Shavuot, it says, "The Eternal One said to Moses, write down these words. According to these words, I have made a covenant with you and Israel." Moses was there with God for 40 days and 40 nights. Bread he did not eat and water he did not drink. And when he wrote down on the tablets the words of this covenant, the 10 words, then Moses came down Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of testimony in his hands. The Torah uses the word Aseret HaDevarim, which can be translated as the 10 words, or the 10 sayings, or the 10 things. The Hebrew words for the 10 Commandments, Aseret HaMitzvot, they're never mentioned here, or anywhere in the Torah. The first Greek translation of the Torah, the Septuagint, which becomes the foundational text of Christianity, follows this phrasing by using the words Dekalogos, from which the English word Decalogue derives. It wasn't until the first great English translations of the Bible, the Geneva Bible by Oliver Cromwell and the King James Bible, that the translation of the 10 Commandments came to represent these words. And if you're wondering what difference a translation can make, then consider these words. God spoke the 10 words from Mount Sinai. Moses wrote down these 10 words on 2 tablets of stone. And now I'm about to read these 10 words from the Torah, Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 14. Vayadaber Elohim et kol hadevarim ha'ele lemor. Anochi Adonai Elohecha, asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibet avadim. Lo yiyeh lecha Elohim acherim al panai. Lo ta'aseh lecha fesel v'chol tumuna asher b'shamayim mima'al v'asher ba'aretz mitachat v'asher b'mayim mitachat la'aretz. Lo tishtachaveh lehem v'lo ta'avdeim. Ki anochi Adonai Elohecha el kana boked avon avot. Al banim, al shleshim, va'al ribeim l'son'ai, v'oseh chesed l'alafim l'ohavai, u'l'shomrei mitzvotai. Lo tisa et shem Adonai Elohecha l'shav, ki lo yinakeh Adonai et asher yisa et shemo l'shav. Zachor et yom ha'shabbat l'kodsho, sheshet yamim ta'avod, va'asita chol melachtecha, v'yom ha'shvi'i shabbat l'Adonai Elohecha. Lo ta'aseh kol melacha ata uvincha uvitecha, Avdacha v'matcha uvehemta v'gercha asher b'sha'arecha ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz et hayam ve'et kol asher bam v'yanach b'yom hashvi'i al kein berach Adonai et yom hashabbat v'yikadshehu kabed et avicha ve'et imecha lema'an yarichun yamecha al ha'adama asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach lo tirtzach lo tin'af lo tignov lo ta'nev reacha et shaker Lo tachmod beit reacha, lo tachmod eshet reacha, va'avdo va'amato v'shor'o, v'chamoro, v'chol asher l'reacha. I'm not sure if you were counting, but that was a lot more than 10 words. And I'm not sure if you were watching carefully as I was reading, but we crossed 2 whole columns of Torah. And if you think about it for a moment, you should have known there were going to be more than 10 words, because I told you I was reading from Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 14. And it seems unlikely that 10 words would occupy 14 verses of the Torah. There are, in fact, 172 words in those 14 verses. So, how did God's 10 words, which we now call by the name of the 10 Commandments, come to represent by so many words? The answer to this question lies waiting in the words that come after the 10 words. Read with me here from Exodus 20, verse 15 and 16. Less famous, but perhaps more important words for tonight. V'chol ha'am ro'im et, and all the people saw, hakolot, the sounds, v'halapidim, and the fires, v'kol hashofar, and the sounds of the shofar, v'et hahar ashen, and the mountain which was burning, v'yar ha'am, and the people saw, v'yanu'u, and they were in fear and fled, v'ya'amdu, and they stood up and ran, merachok, and they stood from far away, v'yomru, and they said, El Moshe, to Moses, Daber ata imanu, you speak to us, v'na'aseh, and we will do the commands. V'al yidaber imanu Elohim, but don't have God talk to us again. Pen namut, lest we die. All the people witnessed the thunder and the lightning, the blare of the horn and the mountain smoking, and when the people saw it, they fell back and stood at a distance. You speak to us, they said to Moses, and we will obey, but let not God speak to us again, lest we die. Because the great rabbinic commentators of the Torah were writing long before the English translation of the Bible would ever be even dreamed of, the rabbis saw more directly the problem of how God's 10 words had somehow multiplied into 14 verses of the Torah. Their answer was a midrash, a story about a story in the Bible. But it's not a midrash about God's 10 words. It's a midrash on the words that come after the words. It's a story about this story, of how the children of Israel were too frightened to hear God's words. This is a legend about 1,500 years old, but it goes roughly like this. When the children of Israel were about to receive the Torah at Mount Sinai, Moses gathered all the people around the foot of the mountain so that they all could hear Aseret HaDevarim, the 10 words, directly from God's own voice. The people were all assembled, and God began to speak the very first letter of the very first word of the very first commandment, I am Adonai your God. This first letter is the Hebrew letter Aleph, which is supposed to be a silent letter. And yet, the sound of God's voice speaking that first word, that first letter, that silent letter, was so loud and so awesome that it terrified all the people, and they ran away and hid in their tents. Moses chased after them, saying, wait, you have to hear God's words for yourself. But they said, no, God's word is too awesome for us to hear. Finally, it was agreed that the 70 elders of Israel would stand at witness at the foot of the mountain while Moses went up and received God's 10 words. But when the 70 elders were returning to the camp to tell the people of the wonder they had experienced as God spoke each of the 10 words, the strangest thing happened. When one of the elders said God's first word was the most awesome and amazing word, another of the elders said, but wait, I never heard God speak that word. And as they shared together their experiences of hearing God's words, they realized that for each of the 10 words which God had spoken, each of the elders of Israel had heard a different word. And though none of the words were exactly the same, they all said essentially the same thing. They were just different in the perspectives they had on God's exact meaning. And it was only when they all spoke all of their words that they all heard what God had intended all along. And they fully understood what God had intended to say. This midrash is not so much an answer as to how God's 10 words became so many words. It's more of a lesson on the meaning of Torah, a lesson which the Torah itself comes to teach. Each of us hears the words of Torah with our own unique perspective on the world. And if we really hope to understand all that God intends for us to be and all that God intends for us to do in this world, we must listen to each other so together we can build a world of justice, love, and peace. This is the lesson for our Shavuot Eve. Listen to the words of the Torah, and then listen again to to all those who listen sincerely to these words. Amen. Please join me in the blessing after the reading of the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.